Hey, it's Rob, and welcome to the Bald Beavers channel. We're going to have a rundown of the third debate and where the race stands here after this third debate. Okay, first question is, if the election was held today or tomorrow, uh, it's hard to believe that all the polls that Trump supporters are saying are biased are actually biased. But then at the same time, there are polls that show Trump ahead 1 or 2 or 3 points. So who knows where it is, but the polls that Trump supporters think are biased are more heavily in favor of Hillary than the polls that Trump supporters point to as Trump being ahead are in favor of Trump. So if it was held today, I would probably say Hillary would pull out a slight victory just based on the momentum from the Pussygate tape. Well, actually, the backlash from Republicans in which they dropped him actually turned out to be a good thing because he's essentially running as an independent now. So he can drop all that crazy Republican stuff, and he can focus on his new hashtag is drain the swamp. So he can, as he says, drain the swamp of corrupt congressmen and get new blood in there. And he doesn't have to play to the Republican platform. He can basically do what he wants to do within the last 3 months. He should have been doing this since like April or something. Just tell the Republican Party to go to hell and do his own policies. The video, it was Trump being a playboy, as everybody knows that he was in the past. It was crude, it was gross, it was, I guess you could say, misogynistic. It wasn't rapey like everybody's saying it was. I mean, they say it's locker room talk that all men engage in, and trust me, all men that I know have talked like that in that varying context. So Bill Clinton acted like this, JFK acted like this that we know of. Franklin Roosevelt was married to his cousin. Thomas Jefferson had uh, illegitimate children with slaves. I think the answer to that would be that, as far as we know, there have been many American presidents that have been, let's call them, horn dogs with women. It's just now that everything's out in the open, and Trump, by virtue of his universal name recognition and his celebrity for the last 30, 40 years, something like this was bound to come out against him. But I would hazard a guess that what Trump is nothing worse than what, say, JFK is, and definitely what Bill or JFK was, and definitely what Bill Clinton was as a president or before president and as president, and from what say Colin Powell in his leaked emails said, even after he was president. So it's just that all of this comes out easily now through Twitter and through WikiLeaks and through everything's recorded on video, like the Trump tape. So it's just more available. It's just more in your face. But well, obviously the video is a more digestible scandal because it's just out there. It's 30 seconds of Trump in a clear voice, as clear as can be, with a history, with a sense that this is the kind of person he is, this is the kind of guy he is around women. Whereas the WikiLeaks thing takes interpretation. But I would say the job of the press, the job of unbiased press, is to A, divulge the information, and then B, interpreted it within the context of the election or in the context of the news, so the people can understand what the importance of the news is towards the electorate. I think the answer to why they don't want to touch it would be, A, maybe Trump is right in that they say they're all against him and they're trying to rig the election. Who knows? That's maybe a bit of a deep conspiracy theory. But B, more importantly, it maybe shows that they actually think, as an extension of them manipulating the sampling size for polls in order to give Hillary a larger lead than she might have, I think they know that if sampling size is relatively even or reflective of the actual population, that the race is actually very close, or Trump might even be ahead. Well, it depends how you define conspiracy. Uh, there obviously seems to be unwillingness to help Trump, especially now. They helped him in the primary. The whole thing about he got a couple $1 billion of free press because he was scandalous and he drove ratings and whatever, and people wanted to see that, and it sells commercials and sells advertising for the media, so they were happy to do it. But once it gets serious, and if they're completely against what Trump is for whatever reason, I mean, drain the swamp might mean drain the media swamp too. Who knows? They're definitely not in Trump's side, on Trump's corner, and they're definitely in Hillary's corner. and Hillary is known to be the more corporatist of the two candidates. Well, Hillary is using the position of Russia in Syria as a means of diverting attention away from the WikiLeaks scandal against her. Now, and Donald Trump says we should work with Russia, or the U.S. should work with Russia, in order to diffuse tensions and then to work together to fight ISIS. Now, why is Russia in Syria? Russia's in Syria because they're allies with the Syrian government. They're historical allies with the Syrian government. They have a naval base, I believe, in Syria. But more broadly, Qatar wants to run a gas pipeline from Qatar through Iraq and Syria up into Europe, which would be a competition with Russian gas supplies to Europe. So Russia obviously wants to stop that. Russia was invited by the legitimate government of Syria. Now, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, as per Hillary Clinton's emails that she knows, they are funding both the rebels, but also the jihadis, which have morphed into ISIS. So, as Hillary Clinton says she knows through her emails, Qatar and Saudi Arabia are funding ISIS, but at the same time, Qatar and Saudi Arabia are giving money to the Clinton Foundation in the form of 10 to 25 million by Saudi Arabia and 1 to 5 million by Qatar. So Hillary Clinton wants to put a no-fly zone in Syria, which would inevitably bring American planes into conflict with Russian planes, and that could spiral into a regional or a global war, and down the line into nuclear war supplies. So she's using that Russian position as a scapegoat reason why they would hack into Democratic emails to then to make Hillary look bad with whatever various scandals might be in these emails in order to help Donald Trump. So like last night in the debate when the moderator brought up Syria, or brought up WikiLeaks and brought up open borders in her her leaked emails, she pivoted right to Russia as if to scare us, like Donald Trump is a Russian secret agent, and that he wants to work with Russia and against American interests. But what are the American interests in Syria? Syria is the one country in the Middle East that the United States has never had relations with. They've never been a colonial power in. They've never fought a war against or over or for. And yet the United States has invited themselves into Syria to fight this war on behalf of Saudi Arabia and Qatar against Russia, Iran, and Syria. Why is this? The WikiLeaks email would suggest that because Saudi Arabia and Qatar are giving Hillary money, that they are paying Hillary to then fight the war in Syria on their behalf against Iran, Russia, and Syria. But they're also funding ISIS. So Hillary, by her own words, is saying that the people that are giving her money are funding ISIS, which in my mind makes her an accomplice to the funding of terrorism.
Respond to that.
Well, I'll grant that Hillary is probably the better candidate in terms of the rhetoric of climate change. But I think the United States is uniquely positioned in the world to tackle climate change on a market level, because in order for the solution to climate change to happen, the market and the consumers have to adopt alternative energy and essentially zero emissions vehicles. So electric vehicles, as well as solar power, wind power, geothermal, whatever. So in other countries like, say, India, this kind of thing is prohibitively cost expensive or prohibitively costly, so the government has to subsidize it heavily. They do this in India through solar power, solar plants. They're putting in terawatts of nuclear and solar, I believe. And in China, they're doing the same thing through government subsidies funneled through private corporations. And in the US, Obama did this, supporting a solar company which went bankrupt, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But they also funded Tesla to I believe it was like $500 million, which Tesla paid back, because Tesla, through the exploitation of the American market, was able to actually bring to market a car, a zero emissions electric car that people want to buy. Now they are the leading luxury car manufacturer in the United States by far, and they're gaining I believe they're even gaining on the German luxury car market in Europe. So the United States, assuming if Trump became president and he stuck to his guns of actually letting the market do what the market will do, and won't won't let, say, the Koch brothers come in and get in the way of solar power like they are in Florida and Nevada. Definitely, that solar power, which has matched fossil fuel in terms of the cost of electricity generation, and electric cars, which are gaining increasing market share, especially with Chevy coming out with their Bolt and Tesla coming out with their Model 3 in the next year or year and a half. They're poised to keep gaining increased market share without government interference in the process. So even though Trump might not follow the rhetoric of climate change, and let's even say he believes it's a Chinese hoax, as he apparently said in the past, if he stays out of the way of the actual mechanisms of the market, the United States is uniquely positioned where the market can take care of climate change itself. The Bernie people, seemed to me, their primary concern was changing the corruption. And if you look on Bernie Sanders' Facebook page, whenever he posts something in support of Hillary, the top liked comments on his page are always about, we can't support this corrupt Hillary, we can't support this criminal, and so on and so forth. So they seem to be anti-corruption and, use Trump's term, draining the swamp of all the corruption in Washington. So let's say that's their primary concern. The three candidates other than Hillary are Trump, Jill Stein, and Gary Johnson. Now, Gary Johnson's an idiot. We've seen this many times. I mean, I'm not even sure if his libertarian credentials are that strong. Weddings. He wants to force bakeries to have to bake cakes for gay weddings, whereas the libertarian position is they should be able to do what they want and the market takes care of it for them. So in that one town hall meeting, or the one town hall interview he had, he couldn't name a single head of state, international head of state, that he admired. I mean, if you can't name one single head of state, I mean, that was a very low pressure environment. How would he react under a higher pressure environment? Now, Jill Stein, she seems like she's got really good progressive credentials, and she seems for fair trade in terms of, in the context of free trade, and she seems for pro environmental climate change regulations and whatnot. And I haven't put too much study into her, but she seems like she's incorruptible. She wants to, let's use Trump's term again, drain the swamp of the corruption in Washington. Now, Trump, whatever you think of him, and I've said this in private many times, he's actually not very good at the political part of what he's doing. He's good at the gaining attention and firing people up, and he's extremely charismatic and whatnot. But the actual political part, he doesn't seem to be able to hammer home the points as well as he should be able to. So people might not necessarily latch on to that his ideas are as similar to, say, Jill Stein's and even Bernie Sanders in the corruption and in the bringing jobs back and in how free trade has impacted American economy and whatnot. But they're actually very similar in those areas. Now, so if Bernie's supporters are if they're so focused on climate change and, say, free university, then they're going to tend more towards Hillary. But if they're focused on anti-corruption, bringing jobs back, and changing the free trade deals like NAFTA and stopping TPP, especially, because even people like the Young Turks think that Hillary's going to sign TPP once they get in there. Now, Trump has repeatedly said he's not going to do that, and he rages against Hillary for eventually going to support TPP. If Bernie's people are on board with the issues that Trump is on board with, I mean, they should look past what I think are minor character issues of being a horn dog and being a playboy when he was younger. I mean, we're assuming at 70 years old he's not still chasing skirt all over town. So look past the character issues, which are irrelevant as to the running of government, as to how a government would function, and focus on the core issues of him getting rid of corruption and bringing jobs back and making free trade deals equal, and as Jill Stein said, avoiding war with Russia, because she said that Trump's position on Syria vis-a-vis Russia is a lot safer than Hillary Clinton's, who seems to want to saber rattle with Russia, which, as I said, can spiral out of control and lead to war. Well, there are a few things. More damaging tapes cannot come out about Trump, obviously. I mean, there's rumors of even worse ones. Who knows? There's rumors of worse Hillary tapes, or Hillary leaks that could come out, and WikiLeaks is throwing thousands of leaked emails out there every day, it seems. So Do they have a kill shot in their portfolio? Who knows? There's a lot of people that think there's some stuff coming down the pike that could actually end Clinton's campaign. And these Project Veritas videos that came out about DNC fraud, voter fraud, and or the willingness of DNC operatives to commit voter fraud on a however large a level they'd be capable of doing it, I think those will have an impact on Bernie supporters that are more open towards fighting corruption and fighting the loss of jobs and whatnot, as opposed to the Bernie supporters whose main issue is climate change and free university and whatnot. And also, Trump's abortion answer in the last debate seemed aimed at Catholics, who, if you remember, there was a WikiLeaks that came out that one of Hillary's main advisors disparaged Catholics pretty heavily about how their religion is so out of touch with the social values, the progressive social values in the United States. And Trump's abortion answer, which seemed the most right-wing he's had so far, seemed to be aimed at getting Catholics back on board with him as a swing vote, because he hasn't been so ardently pro-life in the past, but when he says he's going to elect 2 or 3 justices that he assumes would work towards overturning the federal ban on, or the federal allowance of abortions, it seems to be he's aiming that towards trying to get Catholic votes. And also, just one that I've been harping about that Trump should do for a while is that if he came out in favor of the allowance of the federal government for the states to legalize marijuana, which I believe the main issue now isn't necessarily states legalizing it within the state, it's the transfer of money from the growers and the stores to banks, which are fearful that federal racketeering charges would be brought against them for transferring illicit money across state lines, if I'm not butchering that explanation. But if he were marijuana, I think he would gain more votes. And frankly, I don't see why he hasn't done that yet. It's a nothing issue. That, I mean, what's it, like 60-70% of the population is in favor for, and I don't think he cares one way or another, to be honest with you. So I don't know, maybe he will bring that out in the last few weeks, so we'll see. But I'll maybe make another prediction on Halloween and on October 31st, and then the day before the election I'll make another prediction, my gold star prediction of who will win the election.